at adding another form of authentication. What'd you guys use? Say again? Facebook? Google? What'd you do? Email and password. All right. Extra credit that isn't even listed because it's harder than the others. Started to do this with Twitter in the morning class and then discovered that Twitter changed its API so that you have to add your mobile phone number to your Twitter account in order to use it. And guess what I ain't doing? So it's bad enough that I have an account. So by far the easiest one is the one that owns Firebase, Google. So check this out. Try not to break a sweat. So you go to authentication, sign-in method. Oh, look at that. Someone else signed into mine.
Yeah, I didn't realize that's yours.
All right, sign-in method. Google. Click enable. We did it! That's all we have to do on this side of things. There's no secret key or API key or anything to copy. You just have to enable it. But we still have to make some changes to our app, right? So let's go to the authentication section of the Firebase docs. I think if we go to back to GitHub, there's a learn more link. Let's go there. That takes us right to firebase.google.com/docs/auth, the auth section of the docs. Introduction, blah, 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 Google sign in. Okay. Before you begin, this looks interesting. Handle account exists with different credential errors. Who got that? Did you fix it? Cool. So if I don't do that, we'll watch it error first. So we don't want to do it manually. We want to do it the way we did it before with a pop-up. So remember that provider object we had? Firebase auth, GitHub auth provider. Now we need Google auth provider. So in our base.js, we have GitHub provider. I'm going to add another one underneath it. I'm also going to export it. Export const Google provider equals new Firebase.auth dot capital G Google capital A auth capital P provider. Parentheses, this is a constructor, hence the new keyword. So now that's exported. And where did we use that provider? In sign in. We call auth.signin with pop-up and pass it the provider. So instead of putting GitHub provider in here explicitly, let's pass in the provider as an argument to authenticate. And then down here where we call authenticate on click, let's put an arrow function in there and have the arrow function call authenticate and pass in specifically GitHub provider, because this is the sign in with GitHub button. So we'll label this instead of sign in with GitHub. And now we want another button, right? So we need to import Google provider. Oh yeah, and change this, right? So that it's the one we passed in. Make another button, very similar. So we're going to have to wrap this in a div now, right? If we put two buttons side by side. This one is going to pass in a Google provider to authenticate, which will then pass it right along to sign in with pop-up. And we will label it sign in with Google. And let's check it out. Reminder, I generally always keep my DevTools open when I'm developing in case I encounter an error. Because maybe we're about to encounter one, right? Okay, sign out. And make sure that is, in fact, yeah. Sign in with Google. Okay, which one? David, getfretless.com. And I already fixed this because I was accidentally working on the afternoon Firebase this morning until I noticed, but I didn't undo this fix. So on that same page, authentication, sign-in method, at the bottom, there's this one account per email address, which prevents users from creating multiple accounts using the same email address with different authentication providers. So it stops you from creating both a GitHub account and a Google account with the same email address. So you want to change that to allow creation of multiple accounts with the same email address. Why didn't it stop me, actually? Sign in with GitHub. Oh, okay. The Google one is the only one that I have. This is the error you'd get. Account exists with different credential. An account already exists with the same email address, but different signing credentials. So we can fix that by changing this to allow. Then you can sign in with either one, and you'll have a completely different set of notes for each. If you wanted to have the same set of notes, you could do something like scope them by email address instead of scoping them by UID. That way you could log in with either account and you'd get the same list of notes back. So my GitHub user has these notes. My Google user has these notes. Groovy. Looking at my data, I see two different UIDs here. This is my Google user. This is my GitHub user. Well, that was pretty easy. Add Google authentication. Before I commit that, though, we changed base.js, right? So we should change base.example.js to match, right? Because we want people who clone our code who won't have our base.js to know what they need to change to make it work. So we'll add that new line there. Add Google authentication and update rebase example. Questions? So far, so good?